Hello, I'm Jackie Four. I'm with the consortium. Thank you so much for joining us today for another one in our series, Taking Stock series. Today we have a special focus on students' aspirations and what we can learn from them. And we're so excited today to have some of our friends from REL Mid-Atlantic with us, Jan Anderson and Robert and Adrian. And we also are excited to have Scott Solberg from Boston University, who's also going to tell us a little bit about the work he has done in this field. So I'm going to kick it off to these folks. If you have questions while they're presenting, please feel free to add that to the chat. And then so that way they can answer your questions. And we may, depending on the time at the end, if there's time for questions too, you might have an opportunity then. So thank you so much. And I'll turn it over to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie, and welcome everybody. I'm Jan Anderson. I'm with the REL Mid-Atlantic, and I'm just going to sort of do a general framing about who's here and what this is going to be, and then turn it over to the real speakers. We're honored, as Jackie said, to have Scott Solberg and Robin Ahigian with us today. You'll see that in terms of taking stock about how students have changed their minds about their aspirations, or you just feel it's time to update their individual learning plans, there are lots of new materials available. And I think this is going to be sort of like a good news session. We also have reports in terms of personal testimonies from Laylani Camacho, who uses these materials in Boston, and Adriana Plach, who uses them in Wisconsin. We have their reports, and Robin and Scott are going to share what they have authorized us to share with you all. And they are volunteering to help you in your next steps if you'd like, but they won't be here on the session live today. We'll be lively enough for everybody, we hope. Once you go ahead with the next slide, Robin. One more. Great. We're going to ask that you go ahead and enter in the chat box your name and your affiliation and what you do at your home place. As you know, when you give presentations, it just helps to know who's the audience. We'll give you a moment to do that. And then Robin, you can advance this one as well. And here are our pictures again. As I mentioned, Laylani and Adriana are not here in person, but they sent their pictures and their content, and so Scott and Robin will carry the day. Let's go to the next one. Great. I'm just going to summarize the goals, and then Scott and Robin can jump in. As I mentioned earlier, we've heard, and you'll see this cartoon reflects it, that a lot we've heard in the press, and you've heard in person with your students, I'm sure, that they've been rethinking, families have been rethinking maybe what they want for their students after high school. And so this is a good time to sort of take stock of how things might have changed in our students' minds. And also just as a kickoff review, a little bit of research behind individual learning plans and the good that comes out of them often. And then share with you, and this is the big headline event, share with you some lesson plans that are available that have been developed by other people and perfected and tried, and they're available publicly, free of charge, and they're easily changed and customizable. So that'll be a main thing. We hope that'll be a good takeaway for you all. And then for item 4, that's where we're going to learn the stories from Laylani through Robin. And then next week, a week from today, which is part 2, we will hear Adriana's story in Wisconsin of having used the bulk of the data her students. So let's not do the poll. Let's just go ahead and flip through these.
Jan, you mean flip through the slides?
I mean, just go ahead. Yeah. Just go ahead and advance this.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to let Scott or Robin jump in here and just share what people have observed as well as you all, and then move into how we can tie things down.
All right. Robin, you want to start?
Well, I'd love to start by hearing maybe from some of the participants first and hearing, what are your thoughts about these statements and this research and the students you work with? What did you see in the last year and a half from your students and, related to thinking about their futures and career planning? And you can unmute yourself and talk, or you can put in the chat, whatever is more comfortable. Practicing appropriate wait time, not uncomfortable with the silence.
I know at the consortium, we've been hearing from many of the districts we work with that many of the students were disengaged from their schoolwork, that it was difficult to even get them to log in. And there were a number of districts that had significant numbers of students that just sort of disappeared.
Yep. Others, those of you who are here from districts? I can speak a little bit from, and Scott, I'd love for you to jump in as well, but some of the schools that I worked with in Boston this year, I'm thinking now a year ago, March, all of these things were true, and trying to find students became the priority. Students that weren't logging on. And in April and May of last year, the focus was finding students, making sure they were okay, making sure students had food, because many of the students relied on school to have breakfast and lunch. And I think a lot of them had to go to work to support family members. So it changed the way I think that they thought about school. And I know that when Boston students returned in March of this year, late March, so it was over a full year that they were out. In contrast to the district where I live, where my kids went back last fall in a hybrid model, but were in school. So that was an interesting disparity to notice. But just the challenge of getting kids back in the game, in March, and then school ended. And so now they're rethinking about what's it going to look like this fall. So I'd love to hear from others and from Scott about, what you heard about what's gone on.
Yeah, I mean, from my end of things, I think we were at the front lines of trying to help support you all in figuring out how to get to that mental health and SCL focus. It really came up with, they're not able to focus. There's so much stress going on, trauma. And so really the student success plan was beautifully suited for having those kinds of conversations and connecting both to thinking about now life mission, what's the purpose going to be as we move forward, to think about future in a different way, but also to take care of the day-to-day and what can they do right now to optimize some of their opportunities and get focused, and a lot of self-care, both for the educators and for our youth. And so we were doing a lot of work on the front lines as well, of providing just kind of workshops around reminding us as adults that we need to first start with taking care, and then we can be a better caregiver as we work with our youth. So I think the whole idea, the whole issue of bringing in the mental health, the social emotional learning is something that's going to stay with us. And I think it's a positive, if there's any positive lining out of it. Hopefully educators are aware now that they need to be thinking about these issues and considering them. And this becomes a good opportunity from the student success plan perspective for making sure they have access to lessons that will cut across both addressing the mental health and the well-being and focusing towards academics. And so we certainly have some lessons we'll share with you today that help to do that. But I'm wondering, I'm going to call out, because this is how I do Zoom these days, is I just get very direct. I don't know if it's just, this is my new Zoom fatigue, but Chris and Aaron, I mean, you're in positions where you're going to be supporting other educators. What is it you want to be able to provide them when fall starts? Are there some conversations or resources that you're being asked to kind of put together? And also, Jackie, I don't want to lose you. We've got middle school stuff that I'm going to share with you as well. It's not just high school. So we've got some things that have been done really well in the middle school frame as well.
And while we're chatting just for a minute, I'm going to stop sharing my screen just so we can see more of each other rather than the background of the slide.
Yeah, Chris, we agree around English language learners, and I'm going to show you some resources that have been put into Spanish, at least, so they're designed to be more culturally and linguistically responsive. we need to be focused on that. Chris, you agree? Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It was really heartbreaking to see so much of the challenges for those kids and their families. I was like, well, I'm still emotionally traumatized by that for them. It was tough. It was really tough. But I think educators in general, trying to build supports, social emotional learning framework and supports for educators to the fluctuation, the in, the out, the instability of a schedule, the unknowing, that whole ambiguous loss that I think we all feel through so much of this process. But I would say some of the things that we're focusing on, and we are in the Williamsport, Pennsylvania area. And so the region is northern tier, which is extremely rural and then suburban, right? So some of the suburban school districts, but a lot of our areas had a lot of challenges with broadband, accessing
internet, all of it.
Kids showing up.
Yeah.
Districts, a lot, I will say this past year that we just finished, a lot of the districts stayed in for almost a whole year, which was wonderful to be able to say. It made the biggest difference. A few cutouts of time, but most folks were in. I think our biggest goal this year is to kind of see how they're going to start, because the wisdom of CDC and the ambiguousness of all of that is really, most foremost.
I know. It's just one more
talking about how do we poise ourselves to do that. And I think the biggest thing for us is trying to understand social emotional learning as it relates to career readiness. How do we get kids and families and schools to understand that it really is attached to career readiness and transitioning from, every grade level to the next grade level, thinking about the necessary skill sets that would be transferable. So that's one of the big targets I'm pretty sure that we're going to focus on for sure.
Yeah. And I think that I really appreciate you bringing up that was the one thing I think as a nation we brought up is the fact that internet access, skills in using these, whatever those computers were they had that nobody seemed to like, it was just, there were so many challenges, right? We received an NSF grant right when it hit, and it was to work with Sociedad Latina. It's a community-based organization, and they work with middle and high school, and we were focusing on the middle school. So that's why Jackie, I've got some things in there. And we were like in shock for a month, right? Because we're like, how are we gonna do our program? We didn't design this for a remote system, right? And they were in shock because these are young, these are a lot of migrant youth and families who don't have access to all that stuff or don't know how to use it. Yeah. And so we were just privileged that our BU jumped in and IT just supported, got things going, helped them out. It was just, but it was all hands on deck, trying to get this. So I don't think we have really come to terms with the trauma we've all gone through in witnessing and being part of all that. It's really hard. But now we're like getting ready, as you said, where are we going? What's going to happen next, right? With all this stuff. So it's sort of the ready and then wait kind of a thing. Aaron, I was hoping you might have something to say too and all that.
Yeah, I think to build on the SEL conversation a little bit, we've worked with about 17 school districts this year, focused on meeting the future ready standards for PA, and SEL has come up a lot. But I think part of that conversation is, I've noticed with a term like that, it tends to drift in terms of what people think it is and how they want to implement it. And I think it's been a challenge I think one, as you're saying, convince folks that SEL is definitely part of future ready planning, and then also making sure that SEL does not shift into that like character education space.
You're right. Yeah. No, I hear you. I'm not as I don't know, maybe, and every region could be different, but it's been feeling like the SEL is moving into mental health. That seems to be, and we've got really good data on that, showing that. Yeah. So I'm hoping that it's going to keep moving in that direction. If it becomes character, if they use the word citizenship, we're a little better, I think, going down that line. But I think that but I agree with you. I don't want to redo the character ed days. No. Jackie, did you have any?
Mind?
Go ahead.
Scott, I just wanted to add just one more thing that I think from school district perspective, the other thing I think is really hard and difficult to think through is how to actually provide supports for educators and families this year, because people are used to not going to on-site live trainings. And I know most of you probably experienced the same thing with a real glut of substitutes available to cover classrooms. I know Pennsylvania is really hit hard with that. So, we continue to do Zoom-based trainings? Yes, they're so much more effective and enjoyable when they're live, but will people come and can come if they want to come? So I think we're going to spend a good couple of weeks in early August. We've designed a lot of trainings, but the delivery model, we might have to do a blended, like we expect our kids and families to consider. Some are in, some are out, some are Zoomed, live, so I think that's probably a biggest question for us, and how effectively to provide the supports that districts want.
Yeah, so I'm gonna I think they're wanting to get back onto our schedule here, but I'm still gonna take over a little bit here and give you some things. So I got two things I just put in the chat box. Go to the second one first. The second one is a workshop we did on really working with educators and families about taking care of themselves as the first step towards being able to care for their youth and for their children. So it's what it's designed around is very scientific evidence around how we manage through disruption and crises and different things like this. And we've taken, and now it's a year old because we did it right when everything started. But it was really popular. What you're looking at right there is where my community took it on, and they're actually now it's becoming part of the health department in our town. That they've taken this up, and they're gonna continue building on this as we start the new year for resources for families to have as they start going through this. But this idea of self-care, and honestly, one of the most amazing things our district did is our student services got together and just had conversations with educators about their self-care, and the educators thought it was the greatest thing they'd ever had, PD wise. So I think we need to reach out, do that level of conversation. I want everyone to have a SMART goal around what they're doing this week to take care of themselves. And I would love that conversation to take place with family, teachers, and youth, right? All the time, everywhere we go. So there's some resources that might be helpful as you think through that. Again, it was designed right around the whole point of nobody even knew what remote learning was. We didn't know how we're going to deal with all this. So, it was just trying to grab at and provide some resources on there. So it was a pretty popular one. We actually repeated it a few times, but really good to remind ourselves. The other one is your access to all the lessons you'll ever want that we've been developing. It's the ones that Jen started to allude to. I just wanted to make sure you got it there. And so you had that, and we can talk. We've got one that we'll showcase a little bit, but these lessons have been tested with high schools in Boston. And then when it says Sociedad Latina, that's specifically middle school transitioning down. It's the same process, middle and high school. So don't get bothered if it looks like it's too complicated. This is designed for you to copy it and improve it. Now we did do it with Naviance because that's what the district was using, but you can align it to whatever you're using. And some of these are in different lessons, but we found it to be really exciting. The SEL, Aaron, the way we're framing it is around career readiness, right? So we're trying to help the educators see that, yes, it's the foundation for a good classroom. It's then the foundation for mental health, for which there's good longitudinal data supporting. And these are the skills the employers are asking for. So we call them human skills now when we talk about the fourth industrial revolution. What are the things the technology can't take away? They can't take away compassion and empathy. They can't take away your ability to work with diverse individuals and complex communication. What we can do is help our educators and working with school counselors get credit to you to show them that talent that they have as they do project-based learning, as they're working with youth with disabilities and EL learners. Let's make fully inclusive activities where they have to learn how to work with one another. And so, so pretty exciting stuff there. And then what we do is, rather than, we don't use interest assessments, we basically take this who am I, and then we have them go out and find how that talent that they have in human skills expands to like 500 occupational opportunities, right? And so now they're able to go, oh my gosh, I didn't realize, I thought I was just as good as my math grade or my science grade. No, actually you've got talent. Now let's start to begin to think about how we get there, right? I mean, they're so talented. The other thing we do, we've got a really cool thing. Are you all familiar with the REASEC profile, the interest inventory? You know about career interests. most of them are based on this personality type profile called RIASEC. And what I'm unhappy about is that you don't know RIASEC, because that's the point of doing it, is to learn how the personality style relates to the world of work. We're not talking about traits though, we're just talking about type. And so what we've done is we've created a narrative strategy where you talk with youth about these different types. It's very fun. They see some videos and they decide for themselves what their type is about. And then they go investigate the different ways in which the world of work align to that type. Now, that's one level. The other level is this helps us talk about their personal brand, right? When they start to know something about their personality dynamics on their own terms, we then help them reflect that in a resume, in a more functional resume design. So really fun stuff to really get them focusing on taking charge, having their voice, being able to take some power in their impressions that they're giving others, right? By creating these kinds of documents. So really cool stuff. If you have a school counselor who's good at it, and then we did this with Sociedad Latina, it was so much fun. My wife and I are in the same area, so we were like, it was so much fun for us. But if they're really good at the RIASEC and understand it, the students give us their code and then we interpret. We give them like the psychic interpretation. Well, let me tell you about yourself. And we talk about, and they're like, going, yeah, that was it. Yeah, that was, how did you know? So it's awesome because it reinforces the fact that they've done their own self-discovery and it's meaningful. It has some connection. We talk about the things they like to do, the kinds of work things they might be interested in. And they're just like, oh, wow, I never had any idea. So it's a very fun way to do it. And personalized interpretations is a very important part of career counseling, but we don't have time for it. So now we can do it in a group setting, and you're going to have 4 or 5 different permutations, but as they listen, they'll learn from each other and you don't have to do 20 of them. You can do 5 or 6 and you're going to hit most of the group. So it's pretty awesome to do it. You got, like I said, you got to have that person who can do that, but we're moving in that direction around more narrative. Like we just did with Sociedad Latina. We're doing it actually right now as we speak. They are doing their final activity where they're going to do a comic strip. And the comic strip is based on questions about their career identity. So we're having them do a more narrative, self-expressive way to talk about things they're thinking about, what are they learning, what's going on, and using a comic strip as a way of getting that. I so hope it's successful. We've never done it before. So this is what we do is we incubate, try things out with this amazing group of educators that know how to work with Latinx youth and really get it. And we kind of work together on the design. They test it out and then we get to hear how it works, which we'll find out tomorrow morning. But yeah, this is some of the stuff that's going on. How do we help you start to take charge? The lesson that we're going to showcase if we ever get there, if we ever get on an agenda, we'll get back to that. But there is one we have on personal roadmap. And what you always want kids to have SMART goals. And it's like, well, how can you have a SMART goal if you don't know where you're going, right? The goal is supposed to be specific to go somewhere. So we're encouraging using the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Let the youth go out and find them. Thank you, Aaron. I agree. So we have the links there. We said, go out and find yourself, right? What impact do you want to have in this world? They're angry. And if they're not angry, they've been sleeping for the last 13 months, right? So they should be angry. The loss we've all gone through, the sense of uncertainty, the fact that all of these adults have really screwed up the planet. There's a lot for them to be upset about. How about if we agree with them and help them channel it and show them that there's a whole global effort underway that they can join with. Now let's come back and talk about a mission. What do they want to throw down? It's all practice. It'll all evolve as they get older. My daughter was going to save the planet and now she's looking at sociology and some other things. I mean, it changes, but the skills around putting yourself somewhere and actively engaging in it, those are the skills we're trying to give them. And so then from there, we start setting SMART goals. What would be the next steps to start kind of thinking about it? So really good time to help them kind of do that. I wanted to hear from Jackie Yaros. Did you want any comments that we've been yakking about middle school? Any thoughts in terms of your perspectives around what we're thinking about for them?
I'm just loving hearing everything you have to say, as a middle school counselor and really working very closely this year, with career plans. I was just excited to see what other people were doing and how I can continue to support my students and make sure that they're ready for next steps as they start high school. So this is really valuable.
Yeah, one of the innovative things that BPS is taking on full, because now we're doing middle all the way through high school for them, is they want us using Nearpod. Have you been using that at all, Jackie?
I have not. I'm a little bit familiar, but have not used it.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's amazing. And it allows you, if we are going to be in this COVID space, which we probably will be, but even if we're not, and we've got them online doing some stuff, it's a really nice addition. So our lessons you have links to, we're going to continue updating those lessons. So they're more interactive and dynamic. But yes, the who am I is the one I would have you start with, because the third lesson goes out to ONET and has them play. And so rather than using interest assessment, they're seeing that they actually have right now have talent that aligns in so many places. And it's great to get our middle school and our high schoolers, but in middle school, it's great for them to see themselves as having some potential futures.
That's amazing. Yeah, we're currently using Smart Futures. So I'd like to see,
Okay.
what your lessons are and kind of how
Yeah.
they may connect with Smart Futures. And you're right,
Okay.
because obviously, COVID and a lot of the remote learning has been a barrier. So the more
Yeah.
opportunities I can give to students and to classroom teachers, the better off we'll all be.
Yeah. Christy?
I just wanted to add that PA Career Zone, I put this in the chat, but it's, and I think everyone here is from Pennsylvania in terms of practitioners, aside from, our Boston folks. But PA Career Zone is free. And I'm sure, Jackie, if you're a counselor, you've probably heard of this, maybe use it. But we used it this year in a program that I was running with high schoolers, and it did this. There are a lot of quizzes that you take. So in the first section, you are exploring who you are. It really does that self-discovery in a guided way. So we were able to give the kids, help them sign in, give them the links, and tell them to do this in a way that was interactive for them, and it didn't have to be hand-holding. They were able to do it on their own after just giving them directions. So it's a really good resource. And then it connects you to jobs that you might be interested in that align with your goals. The only shortcoming is that those are also based on Pennsylvania needs and availability. So it's not national or global. It's, well, in Pennsylvania, we need workers who do this, and your goals and personality align with that. So
yeah, no, that's fine. I think you can always go to ONET with the same data and then start expanding out. Kristen, my only concern, I haven't seen it, so it's probably not this way, but I get concerned about interest kind of questions for youth that have not experienced, feeling successful. So they tend to be more narrow in what they're at. And that's why I'm going to more narrative strategies. I want to explain to them what it is, let them try it on. Now, once they have that established, certainly, go over to the interest assessments like a couple of years later, and check it out and see what's there. But I don't want to start there in middle school unless I'm sure that they've had a full, they call it the cafeteria of life experience, because we don't know what we're assessing. Are we assessing their true potential, or are we assessing what society has said, this is what we can do?
And that is something that I have learned from you, Scott. And so the survey is, definitely we couched it in a lot of prior self-exploration before we were, hey, take this survey. So
perfect. Great. Good. I'm glad I trained you well, Christy.
Yes, you did.
Excellent. But I also have to give that speech every single time. And don't get me on learning styles inventories, because then I'll go off another time, because please get away from it. We have an optimizing, if you want to put the lesson, or whoever put the lesson, was that you, Robin? Were you going to?
Yeah,
You're like the maestro.
It's hard to maestro with you, Scott, because I'm not sure where you want to go here.
It's a great
I'm going to stop sharing, and then,
But for those who want to do the learning styles inventory, introduce them to universal design for learning, right? So we should be designing it so that everyone learns across multiple ways, and show them this optimizing your learning strategy. It's really cool. I was influenced by this from a middle school teacher working with my son in her class, and she had them all go and think about what are the challenges they're facing, build a strategy for managing something about their lives, test it, come back and reflect on how it went, and then build a PowerPoint presentation to share it out. I was fascinated to see this boy who's got lots of emotional challenges, and I'll put something together that just it was out of the park. So I got permission and learned some more, and then we built on that. And so the optimizing your learning that's in the broader list that I gave you, it takes it on that. And Sociedad Latina does some really cool things where they use the experimental method for the testing, right? Let's talk about it as a STEM activity. So that's kind of cool. And of course they have it in Spanish as well. But on the other one, it's kind of taking them through and having them really recognize the fact that we may have different challenges, but who knew that the supports are about the same, right? And they choose them, they're malleable. And so we're trying to get them to think about how they can be better at focusing on things, but also that there's something in this world, even though it's crazy, there's something they can try to take control over. I'm not saying they have control over everything, and that's not the point of it, but let's find something you can control. Is it diet? Is it talking to someone? Is it reaching out? What are the things within their world that they can do? So pretty cool stuff.
Scott,
Yes,
I wonder,
Robin, did you want to?
yeah, if you could just in case folks don't know what Sociedad Latina is.
Yeah, so it's a community-based organization that does after-school and summer school programming in Boston, and they support middle through high school, and they have a really strong enrichment plus coaching. So they take the students in and keep working with them all the way through 2 years of college, and they've just been really successful. Amazingly successful. Their rates are 95% high school graduation plus college entry. I mean, it's really an exciting program. So we've been really privileged that they were interested in working with us, and it's a collaboration. They learn from us, we learn from them. We manage, we share resources and such. So what happened then was, in a grant period, you always say that you're going to let everyone have your work about the third year of the project, and then you're going to train people to use it. After 6 months, BPS started training about 80 mentors in using the MyCap lessons, and it reached another 1,000 students before the end of the year. So they went in on our very first year and just started grabbing everything we had and reusing it. So it's been a very exciting work, and it's because Sociedad was so talented, they did the training. So you had youth leaders training teachers on how to do this, and then working with their classrooms on giving them STEM and the student success plan type stuff. It's just been remarkable. So they're a really unique group, and really excited to be working with them. I was supposed to be, about a half hour away from going to their annual celebration after they got done with the academic year, but it started raining and they canceled. So now I'm much more relaxed than I would have been, because it was supposed to start at 4 o'clock. So I'm like, okay, I've got the whole afternoon now.
So Scott, do you want to go through a couple of the lessons,
Sure.
or do you want to?
Yeah, why don't you take it off and I'll jump into that. I'll take over.
Okay.
We'll take a fun little tour. Let me find them first. There we go. Okay, so let me share screen. Now I'm hoping when I do this, this is going to let me keep the screen up. We'll see. So these are the topics, and as part of the way in which I do the student, you're calling it student success plan, is that right, in Pennsylvania? You call it SSP?
No, I think they call it individual career plan.
Oh, individual career plan. Okay, I thought SSP. All right, so this is actually, I started building this for Delaware, but I'm making it universal because it's the same. So when I do that career planning, I break it into 3 buckets: self-exploration skills, career exploration skills, and then and now I'm calling it future planning skills. So I'm starting to take the word career out as much as we can, because it's really about future in life, and that incorporates it, but we need to be a little bit more open in terms of how they might get there. So certainly the personal roadmap, which I just showed you, kind of takes you through. Let's see, get there. You're gonna open up for me? It has. All right, so let me show you the part 1, just as an example, because it goes back to the sustainable development goals that I was talking about. We're also trying to bring role models, and I know we use the ones from I'm not liking the ones necessarily in Naviance, honestly. I don't know that there's enough that really address some of the cultural, linguistic things I want to be looking at, but I found 2 out of the whole list that I could work with. So there are other ones. What's the one I'm thinking of, Robin? What's the one that has all the interviews?
This one, is it this one right here? That's slide number 4. It's this particular.
So that's for this one here, but I'm thinking there's another access that you can use to find role models. You remember the name of that? You know what I'm talking about? Okay, yes. We'll figure it out. Okay, there's another one's better. So anyway, so trying to get you to think about what are you passionate about. They watch a little video to see how this individual got passionate about their direction, which was awesome. And then we go right into the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and they go and just play, just explore, which ones look interesting. UN has such a nice set, and materials. It's really engaging for youth to be looking at, right? And my gosh, to get middle school youth starting to focus on this, pretty amazing if we think about it, but then also in high school as well. And then out of that, they just start, we were using this as a way for them to do this. Now, if I'm writing this differently now, I'd probably have a Nearpod where they might do each of them writing like on some kind of a graphic thing. We might use Jamboard for them to throw up some ideas. What's nice about the Jamboard is we can use it as kind of our own formative assessment. How are the youth doing, right? So there's things we can do with that. But then they craft a mission statement, which is kind of cool. Put something like that together. And that's kind of the first activity, is for them to start thinking about it. And then literally putting together kind of their own roadmap. And now in lesson 2, we can go over to SMART goals. As they're thinking about some future orientation, they can start thinking about, well, what's something I can start working on if I want to pursue that. So that's cool. And then I think the third lesson, and then we're also teaching them what SMART goals are, right? I mean, they don't know what they are and why they're valuable yet. So this next one, let me just see where we go with it, is getting them to now kind of put together something more formalized around that. After they've done some things, they've got their SMART goals. So it's kind of crafting a roadmap, if you will, around that. So just another example on that. Nothing too complicated. And we want you as educators to do it your own way, because you've got better, more creative ways for them to express this. We've been doing a lot of Canva work and having them go in, use the Canva resume styles and things like that. We're using Indeed.com as a way to help them understand what a functional resume is. So we do not want to use traditional resumes, and there's a lot of reasons for that. One, companies are using artificial intelligence to look for keywords. So let me show you an example of the kind of keywords we want them to put into their into that resume. So to start them moving towards this, and Laylani, I don't know, were you going to talk about Laylani's experience with the resume, her examples about the resume later, or do you want me to share it? I can't hear you.
Sorry, I'm muted. You can go ahead. I was going to just talk about the general takeaways from that school, but you talk about the resume. Go ahead.
Yeah. So 9th grade, right? They're doing this Who Am I activity, and she was just shocked at how the 9th graders kept wanting to go back and talk about what they could do to improve their resume. Well, what more can I do? What more can I get? What can I go? And she was just shocked. You're in the 9th grade. Why are you focused on your future so much? Well, because they are. I mean, it's really having an impact. So, so this is going to be changed soon. It's got 5 areas. Harvard took it for a randomized study they're doing with rural schools in Pennsylvania. No, New York. Sorry, not Pennsylvania. The other Pennsylvania, in New York and Ohio. And they're doing a randomized control trial, and they're using this lesson, and they made a 6th category, and I love it so much we're going to use theirs. And that's what's happening. Everyone's using them, building them, making them better, and we're trying to keep an open source so everyone can have access to these. But basically, this is right from Castle's occupational skills, the human skills we talked about. And all we're doing, and this is why it's awful, because you got to drag these over. But in Nearpod, we can have little surveys, and that's what Sociedad's done. They put in the surveys, and students click on it, and we can see how many students are saying, oh yeah, I feel innovative and creative. And so it becomes a nice conversation point. So they're identifying, so we're asking them, really honestly, to put out for them what it is that they've got, who they are, what they're about. And this becomes the foundation for that qualification section of a functional resume. So in the functional resume, when we train them on it, we're going to have one statement that's your personal brand, right? What are you bringing to the organization? And what are the key things that are about you? And then the qualifications is the next one. And they have some language now they can start using to put in there. And as a result, we think it's going to be a better way for them to explain to the world who they are. What we're also doing, and it's not here yet, but it's coming soon. This is new and innovative, and we've got a company that we're looking forward to piloting with. But we're going to be working on getting our 10th graders to go away from the online portfolio and build a LinkedIn account. So they have a professional facing portfolio, and then from there start looking at technical skills that they can get right now during the 11th grade. So we can talk more on that if you want. But I'm being pushed by Robin. She's kind of taking the reins and want the break so you can ask questions.
Yeah, I want to just pause and, Scott has shared a lot and said a lot. I just want to give folks an opportunity to ask any questions or share, what you're working on and what it looks like for you and your district and your community. And if not, Scott is happy to keep going, but I just want to pause.
Jackie, where do you want me to go next?
I just had a question. I'd like to know, like, in some school districts where these lessons are delivered.
Great question.
Phenomenal.
So actually, this is a good time for me to talk about Laylani. So in.
You want me to stop share?
Yeah, sure. So in Boston, this varies across the district where it's where they implement it. And in a lot of cases, it's advisory. And in a lot of cases, advisory is 24 minutes and it's not enough time. So in Jeremiah Burke High School in Dorchester, Laylani is the 9th grade math teacher, and she is just committed to this. And she's part of the team. She works with the guidance counselors or the school counselors. And that's where it happens in their school. So I think there's a lot of different ways and places, and Scott can talk more about this because he's been all over the country, but it's, advisory makes sense, but it's not always the right place. It's not always enough time. So there's no reason you can't implement it through, an academic classroom.
Yeah, Robin's right on target. I mean, advisory is always the easiest, and it's best from the standpoint that we want an all means all mentality. So we want all educators engaged in this because there's no rocket science to having great conversations with youth, and the same skills we're working on with youth, the same skills we want educators to have too. So it's all good stuff, right? And pretty not a lot of planning time to be able to get into this. So we want it to be something that's we also want fully inclusive classroom environments or where this can occur as well. So if advisory can be designed to be fully inclusive, we're finding that the general educators really take to the students and are in the IEP meetings to advocate. It's been startling the impact it's had at breaking down some of those silos. So those touch points and getting connected with youth is a really big part of it. Up in Prince Edward Island, they recertified the health teachers to do this. So they decided this was part of the health and wellness, and they went all in. And we've had some other educators in training. I train all the high schools and middle schools in Massachusetts now. They go through a 3-workshop kind of orientation to this process that I work with. And so I've had more than one school say they think that they agree that they've got a health curriculum. It's okay, but they want to add to it more of these things. And so that becomes a nice way. We've had what are some of the other areas? Oh, well, we're really hoping. What's that?
General electives. That's another.
Yeah, some of them will have a career class.
Yep.
And that they want everyone to take. And so it might be in that sophomore year, they'll kind of bring this in. We want it to be annualized. We want every year to be reflecting on these. So we're trying to get it from a, middle through high school all the way through if we can. The other one that's really promising and I'm really excited about is connecting with our community-based organizations like Sociedad Latina, right? Who can offer these in an after-school space aligned with what's happening in the school day. So how do we break that silo down? So we're actually coordinating and working together. Since you're working with the online systems, and if you have access to the one Christy's talking about, it's the student who has the account. So as long as we can support them, or maybe the community-based organization hires a school counselor to come in the after-school space to coordinate. That's what I did in Milwaukee. I just hired our school counselor and our teachers to come in and do the tutoring and the kind of expert work. I had to pay them a lot, but it was worth it because you had someone from the school that knows the kids, knows what's going on. And we were able to really bring in other youth leaders to support the process. So that's something in Delaware we're experimenting with right now with United Way of Delaware to see if we can help bring them into that space as well. So that's exciting.
And in Boston, the partners are a big part of leveraging the partnerships that they have with you, with EdVestors, with other nonprofits, Big Brother, Big Sister, using those folks to help, if advisory or electives at the place where they push this in, then they use those partners to help get the kids that missed it or were absent or, have been out or, so just leveraging the partnerships, I think is a big piece of it too.
you know, the big piece for us is the caring, encouraging adult that's mentoring and doing this. So one of the things that Boston is doing as well, I know it goes beyond your question, Jackie, but it's an important one, is if we think of the educator as a mentor, and we think that the custodial staff would make great mentors, bring our safety staff, and you know, let's be much wider in our understanding of who can be involved in these conversations. We want to help them also be sure that they're working with our youth in a way that's as free as possible from bias and really more critically conscious of racism and the structural inequities. So they built a transformative mentoring strategy where we would spend time at each MyCap session going through an issue, showing James Baldwin and talking about, you know, how schools been designed to fail so many Black youth. Let's make sure we have that in our front and center. Let's talk about LGBTQ and talk about the health aspects and the suicide rates and things, and really put that front and center. So I think it's a good opportunity also for us to be working with our educators as mentors to help support them and really making sure they're not judging our youth for their grades. They're looking at our youth as talent, and how do we help get to that level? And then everything else will work out.
Thoughts or reactions to that?
I got a thank you from Jackie, so I'm feeling like we nailed it.
Okay.
Unless you had more to add, Jackie.
I'm glad that you are including that like culturally responsive piece to being a mentor, because it's so important, right? We each walk in with our biases and often are just unaware of them. So to just make that a part of how are we a good mentor,
right?
That's key. That's really great.
It's been a big missing link in all of my work. I talk about it in my book, we go through it, but I've never had a full kind of training strategy to bring that in, other than to say, oh, you should be this, right? Yeah. And so working with Castle, the SEL group has a transformative SEL strategy, really good resources, great people behind it. And then BPS has the same, independent of that, doing this transform mentoring. And I've been like, I'm being mentored watching through. I feel like I'm in training, watching how they do this. It's fabulous work. So it's now becoming a part of, as I move forward, trying to embed this more in our work going forward. So thanks, Christy.
I wanted to say a little bit too about the SEL part of career planning. I know it's called different things in different states. And I know from work before with Pennsylvania that it is thought of as part of the career planning. That's a way to sort of make it palatable for people who don't, you know, who might hear it as character education. And so that's a piece of the SEL. And I also wanted to mention some of the work I'm doing in Connecticut is I've interviewed and provided or facilitated focus groups with employers all over the state of Connecticut. And time again, they talk about these SEL skills, or as Scott calls them, human skills, or as Connecticut calls them, transitive skills.
Of course they would. Of course they would come up with something bizarre. It's Connecticut. You're kidding.
Yeah, exactly.
I hope no one's from Connecticut who's watching. I was just kidding. I love break bands in Connecticut.
But time and again, that's what the employers said. They said we hire for attitude, we train for aptitude. And that we really want to see people that can think for themselves, people that can solve problems, people that can be calm under pressure, people that can handle stress, people that communicate, have difficult conversations. So anyway, I think it's showing in the research, and now more than ever, we're sort of able to focus on that as a result of COVID, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think were you and I together? Some presentation I've been in, and I've been with a couple times, but they talk about how when you get hired, there's the promise that you've got the skill sets, but you get fired when you don't have the human skills.
Right.
Right. So that becomes a big issue. I call them human skills because it's code for soft skills. No one likes soft skills. Yeah. No one likes non-cognitive. In a fourth industrial revolution, we're trying to find what is the strength space that we're coming to work with. Well, we're coming to work with our human skills. And that kind of movement in that language, I'm trying to, it's something I wish I invented it, but I grabbed it from some others. And some out of the business industry. But the three areas, the three major skill sets that they need in this fourth IR: human skills, technical skills, and career management skills, because they have to be looking at how they're building and working on their human skills. One of my favorite human skills is the ability to take feedback. Now, how can we incorporate that into our project-based learning activities? Isn't that awesome? And how do we help our educators model that taking feedback. Wouldn't that be awesome, right? But that's how they build new, this is what's happening. You've got to be in check with your human skills and how you're impacting others. It's okay to learn, but you got to be open to it, right? How do we help model that it's not as scary? You know, in teacher ed, right, you used to have the supervisor coming in to watch you teach and what's going on with that. And they have an online system with a 360 camera and doing all this. And initially the teachers were like nervous, but as they learned how much they got out of it, it's just like their natural way of what I want. I want more feedback. I want someone to look at me and give me this. So we have to build our capacity to recognize this isn't a threat, it's an opportunity. And if we have the right environment of caring and support, it's a value added that we would have imagined. So if we can help youth learn how to manage that, oh my gosh, phenomenal, phenomenal.
Scott, do you see at BPS then a concerted shift from it or towards more project-based learning as a way to, as a vehicle to help students develop those skills? I'm looking at like the resume lesson you showed us, and I'm thinking about like if most students don't get those experiences if they're not doing something in like the project-based space.
Every time I bring the word project-based learning and civic engagement as two work-based learning activities, I get lots of nods. Does that mean it's happening? I don't know. I mean, I'm not in the academic components of what's going on, but I'm advocating strongly. And the way we're advocating, and there's a great resource, by the way, from Kansas. I don't think Jan and Robin have this. Maybe I'm holding it secret. But Kansas has done a beautiful job of all of those SEL skills and laying them out with rubrics about what it looks like. And all it takes is the academic teacher to do the PBL and then have the school counselor come in and say, okay, now let's assess how we've grown on these sets of skills. And now we're integrating not only the academic learning, but the work-based learning all in a nice, easy step. So Kansas has that. When Robin takes over the fort here, I'll go see if I can find it for you right quick. I do have something on there that I think I can find, but anyway, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing work that they're doing in Kansas. They're probably at the top end right now for me nationally around the design and the resources. A little complicated. Somebody got a little crazy and put out 85 learning objectives. That's about 80 too many for me, but you know, it's okay. They're great people and they're putting it out there, but I started copying down them. I'm going, how long is this going? I kind of counted up. I went, oh my gosh, somebody had some fun. But at any rate, the PBL is civic engagement, critical. And civic engagement to me, this is a fully inclusive. I want EL, disabilities, general population, whatever it is, I want them to figure it out. How do we communicate? Well, they'll figure it out. How do we figure out what each other's talent is? They'll figure it out. They'll work it out. And don't give them the structure, just let them figure it out. And if they need some additional supports, then we'll give it to them. But what is it that they can do as a team, right? So we just put the Sociedad Latina Youth, they go through a data science STEM piece, and they were looking at COVID because it was about networks and learning how disease spreads as a network. And their civic engagement activity was to design a public service announcement about why it's important to get the vaccine. It's outstanding. The work they had to do, the graphic design, the creativity, the working together, different committees, youth-driven, phenomenal, amazing work. And they did things they never thought they could ever achieve. So to have these middle school youth feeling powerful and effective and having a voice in this whole process, amazing. So I think I'm a huge fan. I was a 4-H'er, so I don't usually share that. But well, no, I can't. Pennsylvania, we got 4-H'ers going on in Pennsylvania. Yeah. All right, now I'm with family. So yeah, so I went through 4-H and we were out there winning projects for community stuff. And so everything I do is based out of what I learned in 4-H. And a lot of it was around that commitment to community and civic engagement. So really, I'm a big fan for that. So Aaron, I can't answer the question about whether, but I know that when I talk about this, I'm like trying to help educators see that push for project-based learning fits beautifully, and we can go one step farther now to connect it up to the career readiness. It just takes one. We've got the resources and structures for that.
And I will say that Boston schools have autonomy. So it's not like the district, I mean, the district can tell them to do some things, but it's not like they'd say, we're all going project-based learning now. Each school kind of does its own thing. And there are some schools that are pathway schools. And so that is an inherent part of what they do for their work. So I'm seeing more of it, but I wouldn't say it's district-wide.
it's growing.
And personalized learning as well, like
Yes.
personalized competency-based learning is another place where it shows up.
Yeah, here's one thing from Kansas. This is this should get you to a lot of their resources. There we go. And then inside what I just gave you is this employability skills measure. I'm going to put that in the chat box right now. And this is where you can find their rubrics. And like I said, I think it's a no-brainer that we can take from the career development side, take a look at the academic development that's going on if it's in these group settings, and then apply these rubrics and say, oh yeah, look at this. And then we can start talking about badging, micro badges, or whatever kind of fun things we want to do to get youth on there.
Scott, you will be happy to hear that the program I mentioned that I did last year,
Yeah.
We ended the capstone sort of thing was the students went through a PBL process and had to be a community focused problem that they were focused on. So they did things, each school did a thing. And one of my favorite one of our schools where we had a combination of immigrants and ELL students, their goal that they wanted, the problem they wanted to solve was that global social justice issues are not known well enough by their peers. And so in the fall, they are putting on a workshop series during lunchtime to highlight various global issues of social justice, because that was what they wanted to do. It was, yeah, they blew my mind. It was amazing. And that's the power of like, it was tied to their career. This was their choice. They're advocates. It was really cool.
So also thinking about stuff like that, right? We need to help them with their resumes, figure out how to give themselves credit for those things, right? So we kind of gave the byline in the resume for doing the PSA announcement. Here's what you can put as your, as something that can go right in the resume. So we want to professionalize the skills that they're building so they can see the value at another level. It's just something new I've been kind of really trying to consider, is really making sure we give credit to all of this work. And then a really cool thing you could do, Christy, is after they practiced it with the live version, have them do it in a webinar format that's recorded, right?
I want them to do a webinar because I want that to be available to the public.
Everybody, exactly. Yeah, and showcase the talent of our youth.
That's just it. I'm like, no, because then you can share this with when you apply to college or a job, like this goes on your LinkedIn. So
right.
Yeah, no, they're nervous about it. And I'm like, guys,
no, let them practice, let them do it. Once they get it going.
Yeah, let them practice first. I like that. Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, that's awesome. So exciting. It's so amazing that we've not really understood the talent of youth, because we're trying to teach at them and we're trying to do things at them. And what happens when you step away and let them engage, and all of a sudden amazing things happen. So amazing stuff. Aaron, Chris, any other stuff that I've not hit, or any other clarification type stuff that you want to jump in on? Did the Kansas one come up okay? Did you find rubrics?
Yeah, that's excellent. That is really excellent.
I'm telling you, they're amazing people, first of all. They really are.
Yeah.
Amazing. You're talking about rural issues. They got rural, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
they've been doing it. I'm sorry, go ahead, Scott.
No, go ahead.
Kansas has led the way for such a long time. I mean, I've been in education for about 31 years, 32 years. And I think my third year, literally when we were looking at career education and work standards in Pennsylvania, I can't believe that that's still one of the leading states to share resources to, which is really nice.
They're amazing. I mean, they've got this, everyone hates it because they're so awesome, but they've got this sunflower with their career pathways. And beautiful, just beautifully designed. And every time I show it, everyone goes, oh, it's like, I know. Can you believe it? Someone at the State Department has got some major skills, and everyone's jealous. But they're really great people, and they're very collaborative and ready to share everything that they have. And so, this is the role I have. I get to see the best of, and then bring it to you to consider, but also think about how we can make use of it. And this feels like an easy win. The rubric's right there. We don't have to use all 80,000 skill sets. We can focus on a few, or we could do grade level and say, for this grade, we're going to focus on these, and then each grade would go up. But I think this really helps school counselors see a role they can play in building that out, building out their portfolio, getting it on their resume, for example, things like that. So there's a lot of cool things I think that Kansas is doing. But yeah, they really are, they're really nailing it. What we're studying right now at a national level is the career tech ed, the ILP and SEL link, and seeing, we've got 3 states, Kansas being one. How are they bringing all that together? And what does that look like? And so this is an example of that. And so we've got Delaware doing it and Wisconsin. So we've got some case studies. It'll be ready. They'll be ready in a soft launch in fall, but for sure by next spring we'll have them nicely done. Castle will be producing them along with our Coalition for Career Development. But it's a really exciting. It's exciting to see innovations like this.
Scott, I do have a question. You were talking about making sure that as students have these experiences that they are able to document and share them and reflect on them. And you were talking about LinkedIn. We've had some conversations with districts who have talked about going down the road of badging or specific credentialing of skills.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure how you feel about that form of documentation versus more of a portfolio style.
Yeah. Robin, did you want me to share the coalition? You can put the link in if you have it.
I was just thinking.
So Aaron, you're teeing up a really interesting idea. So first of all, I want anything that's competency, right? Anything that's competency and anything that's going to lead towards getting rid of seat time. So if you can demonstrate you've got these skills, what credits can I give you? So I'm all about building the competencies that everyone agrees with. Yeah, that's a really important skill. And then I want to imagine, and how can that give us credit back, right, on some things. So I'm down that road, right? And really cool stuff, amazing. So the reason why I want the LinkedIn account is because that summer, I want our community-based organizations, whoever's can offer summer programming, to help the youth get online, and Microsoft and Google, it's called Grow with Google. I'll see if I can get the links here for you. I've just got to see if I can open up this thing here. Grow with Google. It's a cost for Grow with Google, but it's free until the end of December for LinkedIn and Microsoft. So I'm going to put the first one in here for the Grow with Google. I'm sure you can find it yourself right there. The one for Microsoft is a little harder to find, so I'm gonna do it for you. It's called opportunity.linkedin.com. And this, so here's the problem, Aaron, and this is why, yes, we're all going down this line. IBM or LinkedIn, sorry, Microsoft and Google are tired of waiting for higher ed to deliver quality skills. So what they've decided is they're going to build their own certification programs, and they have businesses that are looking at the LinkedIn account. And what I have been told, but I have not fully seen yet, I'm trying to pilot and get this out there, is that when you complete one of those certificates in LinkedIn, you get an automatic badge placed up on your LinkedIn account. And that's code for business to say, oh, there's one more we can look at. Now, why do I want this? I want the business community, and in rural settings especially, right, to see, oh, I think, did I put the wrong one in? Robin, did you put it in there? Oh, did we get it? Did everyone get the 2? Or did I mess up on did you get the Google? Did you get the Google one?
Oh, you put it to me. So I'll
can you redo the Grow with Google? Okay, thanks. So so anyway, so I want the business community to look at our youth and say, oh my gosh, I didn't realize there was so much talent. Right? That's the one. 2, I want them leaving the 11th grade knowing they can leave high school and get double minimum wage. That's our goal. Every single student has that option. Now think about what their options are as they start thinking about future post-secondary. And we want them all to have 3 pathways. If I leave now, what can I do? If I continue in a 2-year, what would those options be? And if I go 4-year, what would those options be? The reason is we're only getting 1/3 of our students through post-secondary. They have to have backup plans, and we need them to fall into livable wages, right? So I'm not doing it to say it's a college or a career, it's a both. You know, mental health issues, family issues, COVID issues happen, right? We have to be ready to anticipate that it's not going to be, and they're living till they're 90. So what's the rush, by the way, right? And I was told from my colleague, I'm living to 150, so I don't know what you're talking about. So we're really pushing some envelopes here. And it's to think that the 17-year-old's got to have it all figured out is one of the most ridiculously crazy things we could ever imagine, right? So that's why we're building their skills to do this. So I'm a big fan of the badging, Aaron. Where we get issues right is the quality. And that's why getting them to these technical skills or early college, they can get a dietitian certificate aid, they can get these other things, but having them do something and creating a norm that when we leave the 11th grade, we're doing something that hopefully by the 12th grade, as they're moving into 12th grade, they're getting work-based learning experiences, right? That they're getting these additional kinds of things that are aligned to their true talent. So that's my thought. That's the big thought. I have actually blowing that out of the river. Wouldn't it be nice if there was a company that could take all of that resume information and build a skills profile and show them that their skills are much bigger than that, and then show them the pathways. And once they choose it, could align the learning opportunities. We'll have that hopefully very soon. So the company's available. I'm trying to get them. I'm trying to see if we can bring it down to the youth level, but we're budgeting them in our next project. So there's some really, really exciting things to support us in this space that are going to really blast us off. But if we can at least start moving in that direction. For big districts, BPS, they already took my idea up the flagpole. I give them an idea and I come back 2 months later and they go, oh yeah, we've already talked to legal about this and how they want to do it. I'm like, you've already taken action on it? Are you kidding me? I'm just talking. So anyway, so they want parent permission for the youth because it is a public safe facing thing. And I'm like, really? Because have you seen their accounts on social media? Is there parent permission for that? But anyway, so they're wanting that little protection. I don't think parents are going to care, but there is a system called Tallo, Tallo, that's a more enclosed LinkedIn type environment. So so that's a company that's mostly out of Delaware in that part of town. So they're doing some good stuff. But yeah, so again, Aaron, yes, I love the badges. I love moving towards the competencies. Oh, and that was the final thing. IBM is taking off the job descriptions that, what's your academic background? They don't care. They want to know your skills. And companies are doing, that's what companies are doing. They're no longer focused on your degree. They want to know what you can do. And that's why if we can help our youth with that functional resume to build out their branding statement, what am I bringing to your organization? A really cool book is Born to Build by Gallup, or whoever the author is at Gallup. I don't think it's Gallup, but it's the Gallup group. And if you take the Born to Build book and you just do another narrative on these different skills that help you build businesses, they're the same kinds of skills that businesses are looking for, period. They want creative types. They want people that are going to be interested in moving something forward. Supporters. There's so many range of skills. I came out interesting, and I'm sure Robin will concur and Jan, but I came out as a disruptor. I don't know where that came from. So that's what my wife said, Jan. She said, tell me something. Imagine that, right? So at least somebody found me. I felt good about that, that I am a somebody. But anyway, so there's all these different areas. Well, wouldn't it be cool if youth could look at that? In Naviance, they call it the Strengths Finder. It's a similar kind of thing. But we can take that, a RIASEC profile, Myers-Briggs. What are the qualities that you're bringing to an organization? And you're framing it, you're shaping it, you're explaining it as taking control of that impression. That's the kind of stuff that gets moving towards this other level as we get their LinkedIn profiles and things created, that they're taking charge. So really big fan on that. But boy, that was a big one on Amazon. Holy mackerel.
I know. Yeah, I should have made a smaller, but that's the book, just to, not to promote Amazon, but that's where the book
if you buy it, you get to take their assessment, which is awesome. But I think at the youth level, again, you know how I feel about assessments, but it'd be nice to just kind of talk about some of the areas and thinking about that.
So we're sort of down to the last 3 minutes, and I know there's been, a lot shared, and we'd love to hear what more you'd like to hear about, because we have part 2 next week at this time. It's next Thursday from 3 to 4.
I think I gave it all away today. I don't know.
I know. We're supposed to save some for next week. I'm trying to get Laylani.
Next week, you're Adriana.
So, oh, that's great.
Yeah.
We'll talk more K-12 system development. Yeah, that'll be fun.
And I'll see if Laylani or a colleague in Boston can come and join us to just, if you could ask real, questions for people on the ground. So we'd love to hear from you about 2 things. One is the survey for today's session. We really, really appreciate feedback, both to improve, for our continuous improvement for next week and the future, and also just for, for the REL and for this work, we are accountable to report back to the funders how we did. So we'd really appreciate that. And we'd love to hear, what more you want to learn about. If there's something specific, if you want to see more specific lessons or you want to hear about other states, please let Jackie know. And we can try to tailor next week's presentation and future presentations to that. Anything else to add before we close out?
Do you want us to tell you in the survey that you're going to send us, or do you want us to share that?
There's a link there. Yeah. Just suggest things.
Okay.
There are some questions that you'll recognize what worked, things like that, but also what more would you like? Free, jump in.
But if it's not specific in here, tell us now or email Jackie and let us know what would you like to hear sooner rather than later.
Topics include, we just had, Robin and I were just on a call on this. What are the communication materials we can get access to help explain what the heck this is all about, right? How do we explain to teachers, parents, things like that? We've got lots of good things on that. We've also got some questions about, just how do we get started? How do we help a school get moving on it? I used to do the whole, let me tell you the theory and research, no more. Start using the lessons, right? So we can talk about kind of thinking about how we build capacity within ourselves to be able to start doing this, and giving permission for us to build capacity is the start of that, right? Not thinking we have to be perfect as we go into this. So there's some pretty cool things that we're starting to really advocate on in terms of strategies that we can talk about as well.
You will all be getting an email from me at least by Monday with I'll put in again all the links that Scott and Robin shared today. I'll put in also a link to this recording. Please feel free to share with your colleagues. And it might also be an opportunity for you as well. Between now and then, as you look through some of the resources that they so generously shared with us today, if you have specific questions that you want to make sure that they follow up with next week, if you reply to the email that I send you with any questions you may have, I'll be sure to forward it to them in advance of next Thursday's session. But I think, on behalf of the consortium, thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Jan, Robin, Scott. As always, this has been an amazing session. Every time we learn so much when we meet with you. It was been great. I wrote down tons of things that I'll be talking with our staff about, making sure that we talk about and think about in the work that we're doing. So thank you.
Thank you.
I want to add something. So, and I mean this with truest sincerity. So I have spent my career writing, developing, borrowing and sharing career development resources, things for the classroom, whether I create it or a colleague creates it. This has been literally the most effective webinar I have attended in probably 30 years. And
wow.
I say that to you because I am really, the level and the ability that you have zeroed in on. I didn't even know what I was walking into today. Our director, I'm retired and I'm a consultant. And so I get to pick and choose how I spend my time. I love that. I say that too, because I'm too young to retire, but I'm too old to work every day, all day. So I was like done with public education, done with Pennsylvania Department of Ed. Love those people, don't miss them, but I really didn't want to work full time. So I pick and choose how I spend my time. And this has been the best use of my time since I retired in November, first of all. But it's incredible what you provided today. And I just really didn't know what to expect. And I can't tell you how happy I am that it's 4:17 and I'm still working. I'm like, oh, this is amazing. So I've taken so many notes. I've written so many things. I'm going to do some direct service. And this is just a cool FYI side note. I'm going to do some direct service because I miss direct service. The adults have not always been my favorite part of my career. It's most often been the kids. And so the IU said, hey, Herman, can you do some direct service to some of our kiddos who's in partial hospitalization?
Ooh.
And, that's a real soft spot in my heart, kids who just really need champions. And so you gave me some neat things to think about that I could actually look at developing that are really way cooler than some of the things I was actually going to try to do with them. So I thank you for that. And I'll make sure I give you just a quick, note on how that goes. It's the 16th through the 20th. I'm a little nervous because there's some real characters in that group, and my filter has been gone a little bit since I've retired as well. So I've got to bring that filter back just a little bit, maybe. But I just want to thank you. I genuinely mean that. I was so impressed with the resources and materials you shared today. It was really, really wonderful.
Well, I just put another for you to have something more to do, because I don't want you, out on the streets, Chris. I just put a Google Doc that's all my ILP resources, everything.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
All the
That's
presentations,
amazing.
doing reports, everything. So you'll have more on there. And we do have within the how-to guide and other places, a lot of emphasis on disability. So if as you start to look through that, that's been a really big part of our work, is also making full inclusion. And certainly EL is part of that. And we're really got to make sure our youth with disabilities are part of this whole piece. So.
Oh, absolutely. But thank you. Honestly, it's been amazing.
All right. Well, thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Let me also encourage people to pass out the link or get more people to register, because part 2 is next Thursday at 3. And it's going to be the similar format, similar sharing, similar good ideas, lots of aha moments. So please encourage some more people to sign up, and we'll have even a richer conversation. So
all right. This was very fun. Really appreciate it. Thanks, Robin, for letting me go off the rails.
Sure.
Rail, what rail?
Just take it off.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Christy, great seeing you again.
Thank you so much. It was great seeing all of you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.